All right, so in the last video, we discovered what justice in the city looks like, and now we are going to try and apply this to the individual. So remember, if we found the correct definition of justice for the city, then we should also be able to find this same justice in the soul, since the theory of forms claims that all just things share in the same essence of the form of justice. So just as with the city, justice in the individual should be when the parts of the individual are properly organized. So what are your parts? Well, Plato has a tripartite theory of the soul. In other words, the soul has three parts according to Plato. Now, why think this? All right, so go back to the earlier dialogues that we've read already in the class, in the Phaedo, so on and so forth, right? Socrates was talking about a soul that could not be divided. He was talking about a single unitary substance. When we think from Christian theology or Greek theology, right, the soul has always been thought to be one thing. So this theory that the soul has three parts to it is counterintuitive, right? So Plato's going to have to give us some pretty good argument now in the Republic here if we're going to believe that the soul has three parts. So let's start that process. So first, Socrates says, one thing cannot act in opposite ways or be in opposite states at the same time and in the same part of itself in relation to the same other thing. If we find this happening, we shall know that we are not dealing with one thing, but with several. That is a confusing paragraph, but roughly what's being said here is that if we have two conflicting desires regarding the same object at the same time, then there must be two unique things generating these conflicting desires, right? Because the same thing can't have conflicting desires at one time. Right, so Socrates is claiming here that it's impossible for your soul to both, if the soul is one thing, right, to desire water and to not desire water at the same time, right? Those are conflicting desires. It's impossible for your soul or for one thing to have contradictory desires at the same time. Okay, so does this happen with us? Well, yes, Socrates thinks there's evidence that in our soul, we get conflicting desires all the time, and so that means there must be more than one part there. The example Socrates uses is the example of a person who is thirsty but doesn't want to drink. Now, that seems like a commonplace example that happens to many of us. Here's what he says. Now, would we assert that sometimes there are thirsty people who don't wish to drink? What then should one say about them? Isn't it that there's something in their soul bidding them to drink and something different forbidding them to do so that overrules the thing that bids? So here Socrates concludes the soul has to have at least two parts. And he'll call one of those parts the appetitive part. The appetitive part is the one that's generating the desire based on the body's thirst. And then there's also the reasoning part, which is generating the desire to not drink water for whatever reason the reasoning part has developed. So here's an example of when this might happen, right? You're going to see a movie, and now with all the movie theaters out there always having the option to get drinks whenever you want, right? Somebody comes up, your waitress comes up and says, hey, if you want water, I can bring you a glass of water. And you say, no, I don't want to drink during this movie, even though I'm thirsty, right? You're saying, I'm thirsty, but I don't want this water. Why is that? Well, because I don't want to miss any of the movie. I don't want to have to get up and go to the bathroom. So even though your body is yelling at you, hey, I'm thirsty, get me water, your reason is saying, no, we shouldn't drink water right now because then we're going to miss out on other things that we want to do. Right? So you have two parts of your soul generating desires that conflict with one another. One seems to come from the body or the appetite, the bodily desires. The other seems to stem from something that's doing some reasoning. So Socrates concludes, right, we have at least these two parts, this appetitive part and the reasoning part. Okay. But like I said, this is a tripartite theory. So where is the next part? Oops, there we go. I've heard a story, which I believe, that Leonidas, the son of, I haven't heard this one before, so excuse my pronunciation, the son of Aglaon, has come up from the Piraeus on the outside of the northern wall, saw the executioner with some corpses lying near him. Leonidas felt a strong desire to look at them, but at the same time he was disgusted and turned away. For a time he struggled with himself and covered his face, but then, overcome by his desire, pushing his eyes wide open and rushing toward the corpses, he said, "Look for yourselves, you bad things. Get your fill of the beautiful sight." Besides, we often see this elsewhere, when his appetites are forcing a man to act contrary to reason, and he rails at himself and is angry with that within himself which is compelling him to do so. Okay, so why is this telling us there's a third part there? Well, he's saying, look, it's not the reasoning and it's not the appetite that's making this person act the way they are. That's making Leonidas act the way he does. So in that story, right, when he's feeling that anger and he's mad at himself for having the desire to look at the corpses, that shows it's not the appetite, right? There's an appetite that wants him to look at the dead body, but he doesn't want to, and it's filling him with anger. So it can't be the appetite that's causing this, so it's got to be something else. But then Socrates says it also can't be the reasoning part, because we see this type of behavior, this anger, this spirit, in beings that don't even have reason yet. The best example would be small children. So here at the bottom, even in small children, one can see that they are full of spirit right from birth, while as far as reasoning and calculation are concerned, some never seem to get a share of it, while the majority do so quite late. So what's going on here? Well, we have this part of the soul that we're going to call, that Plato calls the spirited part of the soul. And so reason, let's go back to the Leonidas story, right? Reason is saying, no, don't look at those corpses. It's only going to scar you. You don't need to deal with that, this ugly scene, right? Your appetite is saying, yes, look, I want to see the carnage, right? I have a desire to see this. I'm curious, right? I'm being led by temptation. And then there's this third part, the spirit, that is saying, okay, I feel what the body, the appetite wants me to do, and I'm mad about having that, right? It's the seat of his emotions. It's something like his will. And in the case of Leonidas, the will failed, right? He couldn't keep his will. He ends up breaking down and looking at the bodies. But if the spirited part was stronger, then Leonidas would have maintained his will and refrained from looking at the bodies. Okay, so now we see an appetitive part, this spirited part, and the reasoning part. So let's look at these, just a little summary of each part for you to understand what's going on here. So the reasoning part most closely resembles the soul as discussed by Socrates in the previous dialogues, right? The reasoning part of the soul is the part that's responsible for using our rationality to figure out what plans are worthwhile to pursue, and then forming plans of action to pursue them. So this reasoning part is making judgments about what is good and bad for us. Right? So this part of the soul is going to be generating desires for us based on these judgments about what's good and bad for us. The spirited part does not reason, doesn't reason at all. It's best described as the will of the person, and it's also the seat of your emotions, as we were seeing in the Leonidas story, right? He had a failure of the spirited part because his will could not be maintained, and he was angry. So we get to see this as the seat of emotions. So the spirited part, being that it contains our will, allows us to carry out the desires that are put forward by the other parts or refrain from carrying them out. So in other words, the spirit gets desires, recognizes the desires that are coming from both the reasoning part and the appetitive part, and the spirited part is the will that decides to carry through on one of those desires, right? It could decide to carry out on the desire from the reasoning part, or it could, like in the case of Leonidas, decide to carry through on the desire generated by the appetitive part. But either way, the spirit is the will that's responsible for carrying out one of these types of desires. And finally, you get the appetitive part, and this part of the soul also doesn't reason at all. It's just the part of the soul which forms desires based on the dispositions of the body. So in other words, when your body feels hunger, thirst, sexual desire, right, the appetitive part of the soul just generates a desire to match. Right? So if your body feels hungry, then the appetitive part of the soul generates a desire to eat. And this isn't because the appetitive part is reasoning that, okay, the body feels this way and the best way to overcome it is to eat some food. Okay, let's go eat some food. No, it's not reasoning that way. It's just an automatic process, right? It doesn't require reason. Whenever your body feels something like that, the appetitive part just generates automatically a desire. So you have the reasoning part. This generates desire. The appetitive part, no reason, but also generates desires. The spirited part, no reason, does not generate any desires, but is responsible for carrying through on our desires. Okay, so remember, we're working with an analogy with the city here. So how does that all match up? Well, the reasoning part of the soul is analogous to the rulers. Right? Why is that? Well, because both are exercising the virtue of wisdom, whereas the rulers are exercising wisdom about justice and how to structure a city. Right? The reasoning part of the soul is exercising wisdom in finding out what is best for the individual to do. And so they're both taking care of something, right? The ruler takes care of the city by trying to make it as good as possible, and the reasoning part of the soul takes care of you by trying to make you as good as possible. The spirited part of the soul is analogous to the auxiliaries. Both exercise the virtue of courage in carrying out the dictates of the wise. Right? So whether it is the soul or the military class, both are exercising courage because they are enforcing and implementing the dictates that have been put down by reason. And then finally, the appetitive part of the soul is most analogous to the craftsman, and that's because both must exercise the virtue of moderation by submitting to the rule of the other parts for the good of all. And so the craftsmen should not try and take control of political power because they don't understand justice and they'll screw everything up. In the same way, the appetitive part of the soul should not try and take control of the soul overall, right? It shouldn't try and become the dominant part because it will lead you into a life of sort of just temptation and lacking virtue. The appetitive part doesn't reason about what's best for you, so it can't possibly lead you to the best life. It just forms desires based on appearances, not on the truth. Good. So, we now know that justice in the individual is the appropriate organization of these parts of the soul. And we will finish up why or how these parts should be organized in the next video. Thank you.